This build series follows my journey as a backyard restorer, restomodding a 1964 EH Holden panelvan equipped with not only a 3.8 litre Commodore V6 engine, but also an independent front end, an independent rear end, and all the mod cons you'd expect from a true resto mod. All of this thanks to a promise I made to my dying father, ensuring that his last car that he started to restore got finished.
Right, so I'm just doing some rust repairs again, back onto the rust repairs. So, I mean, yesterday I started to fit up this blanking panel. Yeah, Dad had already had this all folded up. Now, what I found interesting though is that it's not actually, whether he got his measurements wrong or something, I don't know, but it required a lot of finessing to get right. And even still, as you can see, yeah, it's all joined together up here. But I've got like a little section here. I'm probably gonna have to put another little section in there. Just, I think once it's painted, you'll see that there's a big difference there, and I just don't like that. So there's that, and then I've got to cut these tacks and just bring this out a little bit as well, because it's sort of sitting in a little bit. But I mean, you get the general idea of it anyway. And then what it does is it, yeah, just joins up to the bottom. So that was all fine. So I sort of did that yesterday, and then Dad's plan always was to put this piece of RHS box section in, just to, you know, I guess give it a nice finish, and obviously give it a little bit of structural integrity in that as well. So yeah, I've just sort of sat that in there just to play around. But I thought I'd just show you one thing here. All of this seam sealer, the original seam sealer, I was pretty much just going to leave that as it was, but I'm like, no, there was something in my head going, no, just get it up and, you know, get underneath it. And I'm glad I did, because as you can see, it's all that brittle, 60-year-old crap. But have a look at the amount of rust that sits underneath all that factory seam sealer. Now this is in behind or underneath the floor, so it's a bit hidden if you're not looking for it. And yeah, just the amount of rust that's in there is crazy. And even on this side, I don't know if you can, yeah, you can see that. So see that there is a little rust hole, right, that's gone through the floor. That's actually, if we look at where that is, that's the mounting point for the rear suspension. So I'll definitely have to fix that up, because that's obviously a structural point. So yeah, and as you can see, sitting underneath that factory seam sealer. Right, so yeah, it just pays to spend that little bit extra time, you know, chipping it all up and getting rid of all this crap, because yeah, it'll just come back and bite you at some point. So anyway, I'm gonna keep working on this now, and then I'll show you when I'm finished. One little tip I can give you, and I've probably given you this tip before, but I'm gonna give it to you again. When I am pulling the car apart again, I want to be able to find stuff easily. So just get yourself a little, you know, organised like this. And as you can see, I'm sort of putting a bit of masking tape on that. And so I know all the hardware for all the different parts, and I know where it all is. And yeah, it's just, it'll make, when I come time to assemble it again, make my job a hell of a lot easier. So it also serves my OCD really well. But yeah, it's a really handy thing. You want to know why rust repairs take so long? Come here. So this one here And as you can see, like this is where, if you can see in that hole there, like Dad had already done this repair before, right? So he sort of just welded up that little rust patch that was in there and finished it off, and yeah, that's all fine. But as I'm going through, because I'm sitting in here, and I go, oh yeah, there's a bit of rust there, right? I should cut that out and just put a new piece in. Yeah. Oh dear, look at that. So that's not great. And then yeah, if you look at this piece, yeah, the back side of this piece is obviously, you know, so I'll replace that whole part, but as you can see how much it just eats into it all. But yeah, that one there, if I didn't cut that out, I wouldn't even know that that was there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll just cut out what I can, because it's pretty hard to get into, and then I'll just put a new piece in just to reinforce that. Yeah, that's all I can do. And then yeah, just make up a new piece for this. And yeah, just, it's amazing. You see, you probably can't even see it in the camera, but there's such a tiny little pinhole there, and that's the back side of a pinhole looks like that. So this is why rust repair takes so long. All right, so over the weekend I spent a bit of time on the back section here. As you would have seen from last episode, I said, oh, before it goes back on the rotisserie, I sort of want to just concentrate on the front and back, just while I've got access to it. So what I've done here is, this is actually probably 2 days worth of fabrication here, just to give you a bit of context. So Dad had already cut out all these sections here to get into the access to see the rust in behind there. So like making this piece here required, you know, just a bit of finessing and a bit of cutting and, you know, whatever. So that was both sides of those done. But then he always had this idea of putting in this piece of RHS in there just to finish off the level on that. So when I was fitting all this up, I noticed that obviously I need to be able to have something for the floor to match up to, because obviously it doesn't sit on top of the RHS, it sits, you know, just shy of it. So what I've done is I've made up, I guess, a little tray insert there, just folded all that up, and then a piece of RHS can now sit in there fine. And I've got something to butt everything up to, which is good. But then having a look under here, I did notice, so this is obviously where the spare wheel well used to be. So all of this used to be inside of the car. With the fuel tank going in, it's now outside of the car. So this was actually going to accumulate, like even though the fuel tank sits about there, it was still going to accumulate all dirt and water and everything like that. So yeah, I had to work out a way to sort of seal all that. So I put a panel in there to seal all that up. And then that just joins up to where the fuel tank mounts to. And then I was still going on the sides of the fuel tank. So again, because the fuel tank mounts are 5mm angle, just see that, 5mm angle. So what I've done is I've just gone another piece of 5mm plate. And that way everything's all mounted in the same way. And then I've sort of just, you know, joined it to the subframe rail. So that's all that side. I've just got to go and get another piece of steel for that side. And then that's all finished. And then when the fuel tank goes in, obviously I'll just run a bead of like foam insulation or something like that, just to sort of seal it. And then, yeah, I've done all that rust repair there, that rust repair there. You would have seen the one that I pulled out from this section here. So that was a piece in behind there. And then even just making this piece here was a bit of a pain because of all the different angles. And it's the same with this one here. So this one here was missing as well. Obviously I needed to make it to match this side. Well, this would cut off from there and was just missing. So this is actually two pieces together here. So what I had to do, because there's 3 different angles, as you can see. So there's the angle that comes down here, then it goes back in, and then it goes there. Then there's obviously the fold, and then there's the angle that then goes down in there. So what I did is so I just folded up a piece, to get the fold, then put it in the shrinker stretcher to stretch this side, shrink this side, which then gave me these two profiles. Then I cut relief cuts out of it to then be able to get this profile, and then I made up a piece, that exact sort of space like that, TIG welded this sort of end here, and then cut out that second bit. So like just that alone was 2 hours work or something like that. So anyway, it all looks good and it's all finished, and the end result's what we're looking for. Yeah, so once that goes in there, so then I'll go and I'll weld this part here to finish all that off, and then we've got a solid rear end. So the last job I've got now before I put it back on the rotisserie is the firewall. Again, because I can use the hoist, I can get it up to a nice workable level. What I've already started to do is take off all of the old brake line clamps, because they're not needed anymore. Just got my, what's it called? Spot weld drill out, drilled all them off, so that's all fine. Now, before I finished mocking up, I marked all the holes that I need to fill, right? So because there's a lot of holes in this firewall, it's going, okay, what ones do I need and what ones I don't? So obviously I've made an X, or I've circled the ones that I don't want. And so therefore the ones that are blank, I've got to keep, right? So that's just my method of doing things, so I can fill in all these holes. I've got to make, so this is where my heater hoses are going to go in. So I've got a nice billet bracket that'll go in there, but I'm actually going to make and build all this up to one spot, one height, and then I'll just re-drill holes into that one. And then obviously I don't have a clutch anymore, so I can get rid of that, but I'm keeping these bolt holes because they bolt onto the actual pedal box. So I need those bolt holes anyway. But then the last part was factory, the whole thing comes out, so that whole section comes out. But because I've made, and I'm using the Commodore steering column, and I welded it to that piece, I'm looking at this going, well, I don't actually need that whole thing out. I only need to be able to take the column out through here. So instead of bolting this in, I'm going to weld all this in, because all this here is a bit crappy. So I can weld that and make that all nice and neat again. And then I can get rid of all the little weld nuts and that as well, and it just tidies it up a little bit. So I reckon that's the big job on the firewall. And then filling in more holes, and then once that's all done, put it back on the rotisserie and get it off the hoist. All right, well, I've got a clear space again. So let's have a look at what I've finished. So yeah, you would have seen the time lapse. I've filled in all the holes that I needed to. I've drilled those holes in, and they will go in there, right? So that'll be a nice blanking spot there for the heater hoses. What I've done is I've welded all of this in. So instead of just bolting this in with a seal and everything like that, it was just not needed. So I just, welded it all in. Obviously I've still got a bit more cleaning up to do, and I've got a lot of cleaning up to do, but as you can see now, it's back on the rotisserie. So yeah, pretty happy to have it back on the rotisserie now. That means that I'm starting to get to the final parts of it. So I think the plan from here now will be to obviously flip it onto its side. I've got to finish off all of the panel work and that underneath. And I think what I'll do is while it's on the rotisserie, I'll finish everything underneath, and then I'll probably paint and finish off underneath. And then I can then take it off the rotisserie, because it doesn't actually need to be on the rotisserie to then do the rest of it, but I'll play with that as I go. So let me just show you what I've done with regards to the fuel tank, and that's all finished off. And as you can see, remember I said to you I wanted to do this on the hoist because I've got all this bar work in front of me here now. So yeah, that's the sides of the fuel tank. all finished up. So the only thing I've got to do is I've still got to put some weld nuts just on the mounting holes on the underneath and that, but I'll do that when it's flipped over on its head. And then the last obviously job to do in here is I've still got a seam seal in through there, undercoat all that and rust convert all that, and then I've got to make up new side panels there and a new crossbar that can be removable. So yeah, still a little bit to go on that, but I guess it's cleared now because the next project has just arrived, and I'm not going to give anything away, but it does have this engine going in it. So I'm not gonna spoil it right now. You'll have to just tune into the next episode to see what it is. But yeah, it's sitting out there ready to get onto the hoist. What I've got to do, while the hoist is clear, I've got to service the 200 because that's been a little while since it's had a service. So I'm going to quickly service that now, and then bring the other project into here and start fitting that up. So make sure you smash that subscribe button because you won't want to miss the work that's going to happen on this next project. So thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.